Hello and welcome to Module 7, How to Write an Effective Conclusion and Minimize Mistakes by Reviewing Our Essay Properly. So what we're going to do in this essay is we're going to look at the common mistakes people make when they write a conclusion. We're going to look at why conclusions are so important, how to use the correct cohesive devices in our conclusion, the structure of a good conclusion, how to write one in detail, and then we're going to look at examples. And then finally, we're going to look at how to review our essay and increase our scores by reviewing our essay at the end. So let's get going with the big mistakes that people make when they write conclusions. First big mistake is they have new ideas. You should have no new ideas in your conclusion at all. All you should do is have ideas that you have already talked about in the rest of your essay. If you have any new ideas, you will get a lower score because a conclusion is just a paraphrasing or summarizing what you have already said, and we're going to look at that in more detail in a minute. Lots of people try to finish their essay by being entertaining or being interesting or saying something funny. There are no marks for being entertaining. There are no marks for being interesting. There are only marks for writing the correct things that I'm going to show you later. So don't try to write an entertaining conclusion. Being too vague, you need to be as specific as possible. Like in the rest of your essay, the more specific you are, the higher chance you have of getting a good grade. So don't be too vague, or vague just means general, too general. Repeating exactly the same thing as in the rest of your essay. Now, as I said before, you can't have any new ideas. Basically, you're going to say the same thing as you did in the rest of your essay, but what you're going to do is you're going to say it, you're going to paraphrase it. You're going to say it slightly different, and we're going to look at how to do that in a minute. And the final thing people do is they use the wrong cohesive devices. So we're going to look at this. We're going to look at the correct cohesive devices to use and the ones that you shouldn't ever use in your conclusion. So why are conclusions so important? It is the last thing the examiner reads, so it is the last part of the essay that the examiner will be thinking about. So it's very important that you leave him or her with a good last impression. It shows the examiner that you can summarize. Summarizing is a very important skill to demonstrate in the IELTS test, and if you can show the examiner that you can do this, you're more likely to get higher marks. Your opinion must be clear throughout the whole essay. As I've said this in other modules, your opinion must be clear in the introduction, it must be clear also in the conclusion, and therefore you will satisfy this requirement and get higher marks for task response. And it makes the essay cohesive and coherent. Cohesive means that it is all linked together, so your main ideas in your conclusion and your opinion are linked to the main body paragraphs and are linked to the introduction, so that gives you higher marks for cohesion. And if you summarize your ideas well and give your opinion again in the conclusion, then it is much more coherent and you'll get extra marks for coherence. So this is why conclusions are very, very important. It's something that a lot of teachers and a lot of books don't focus on, but it is something that you really should practice because it does help you get higher marks. So let's look at inappropriate cohesive devices. So cohesive devices are these little phrases, fixed phrases that you use in your essay, and there are some that are good for conclusions and there are some that are not. So let's focus on the ones that are not first, and then we'll look at the ones that are. So all in all is a very inappropriate way to begin your conclusion because it's very informal. You want to be academic and you want to be formal as possible, so don't use all in all. In sum is providing a summary. So you're not just providing a summary, you are summarizing your main ideas and you are giving your opinion. So in sum is a little bit inappropriate for that. To sum up is the same as in sum, so you shouldn't use either of those. Finally is saying that you have a final point. So you're not making a final point. A final point would imply that you have a new point. And as I said before, you shouldn't have any new ideas, so you don't use finally. And the last one you shouldn't use is in a nutshell. Like all in all, this is just too informal and not academic enough. So don't use any of these cohesive devices in your essay. So let's look at the cohesive devices that you should use in your conclusion. And there are just two of them, so they're very easy to remember. In conclusion and to conclude. So you should just memorize these two, and you can use either of them at the beginning of your conclusion. So you don't need to memorize any other, so it's very, very easy. So just use these two. So let's look at the structure of a good conclusion. There are two things, essential things that you should include: a summary of your main points and your opinion. It doesn't matter if you give your opinion first and then summarize your main points, or you summarize your main points first and give your opinion. But what is very important is that you must include these two things. Should be just one sentence, very, very short. So a quick cheat. I know that students love to have these quick cheats or these quick tips. I don't really recommend too many of them, but this is one that you can use. We have summarized our main points and given our opinion already in the introduction. So all we have to do is paraphrase this. So the two things that we should include: summary of main points and our opinion. We have already done this in our introduction. If you haven't watched the module on introductions, you must do that. So go back and look at the module on introductions. So we always will have these two things already. So what we need to do is simply paraphrase it. So let's look at an example. So here is an example question. The continued rise in the world's population is the greatest threat faced by humanity at the present time. Do you agree? And this would be our introduction. So feel free to pause this and read the introduction. Think about the opinion. Is the opinion clear? And think about the main ideas. So let's look at an example. So here is our example introduction, and here is our example conclusion. In conclusion, there are too many people in the world, and this is a huge threat to everyone because essential resources are running out, and we also are polluting our planet. So this essay totally agrees with this statement. In conclusion, there are too many people in the world. So this is our opinion. Okay, so we've taken our opinion and we have paraphrased it. There are too many people in the world. So it means the same thing. Increasing overpopulation is the biggest threat human beings face today. There are too many people in the world. So I don't need to say this essay agrees again, because we already have said that. So what we've done is we've just paraphrased this because we agree with it. Okay, so then we look at the two main ideas. Two main ideas is this will lead to a serious depletion of resources. Essential resources are running out. So this will lead to a serious depletion of resources. Essential resources are running out. Paraphrased, it means the same thing. Next, we're going to look at pollution, and we paraphrased it by saying we are also polluting our planet. So pollution, polluting, two versions of the same word, two word forms, and that way we have paraphrased the main idea. So let's look at another example. iPhones and other devices are being used more often by primary school children. This essay will suggest that they are very distracting, and that the best solution is to ban them completely in class. So this is an introduction. This isn't the question. This is the actual introduction. So what we do is we take this introduction and we just say it in a different way so that it has the same meaning in the conclusion. In conclusion, mobiles are not a good idea for young children because they interfere with the learning process, and this should be stopped by telling parents that they are not allowed in schools. So, for example, ban them completely in schools, not allowed in schools. So we've paraphrased it. So you can look again at the opinion. How have I paraphrased the opinion? How have I paraphrased the two main ideas? So feel free to pause the video and think about that yourself, and that will help you learn it rather than me explaining everything. So now that we have finished our conclusion, we can stop writing, but we shouldn't stop there. We need to review our essay. It's very, very important that we do this. It is essential that you leave yourself time to review your essay at the end. Everyone makes mistakes, including me. I write IELTS essays every single day, and I have to review every single one of them because I always make mistakes. It doesn't matter how good your English is or how good your IELTS skills are, you will make mistakes, and mistakes lead to lower marks. And most of your mistakes, you'll be able to fix them very, very quickly. And it can make the difference between a band 7 or a band 8, or a band 8 and a band 9. And it definitely will make a difference of those half scores. So say if you kept getting 6.5, it might just be that you haven't been reviewing your essays, and if you start reviewing your essays properly, you could boost your scores from 6.5 to 7 and get into that master's program that you need. So you should focus on 3 things. You should focus on your grammar, you should focus on your vocabulary, and you should focus on a checklist of things that you should be thinking about for task 2. So grammar, what do we need to think about? Everyone has a few weak areas. Everyone has a few weak grammar areas. Before you even do the test, you should find out what your areas are, the areas that you are weak in, and try to spot this in the exam. Every country is different. Every country that I've taught to, they seem to have a common problems. For example, in Vietnam, most people have problems with articles and plurals, and because they know this, because I've highlighted this, when they're reviewing their work, they are looking out for these small mistakes, and they're thinking about these mistakes, and that helps to reduce mistakes and boost their score for grammar. So what you should do is give your writing to a qualified IELTS instructor or to a native English speaker and get them to tell you what your weak points are. Things you should look out for, these are common mistakes: prepositions, articles, verb-subject agreement, countable, uncountable nouns, tenses, and capital letters. So you should be looking out for these things when you're reviewing, but what you should do is find out the 1 thing, 2 things, 3 things that you have a problem with and focus on them. So vocabulary. First, you should scan for any words that you have repeated so that you can easily change using synonyms. And the key word there is easily. So have a look at any words that you have said again and again and again. And if you can easily change them, change them. However, if you can't think of a word, don't spend 5 minutes trying to think of one word. Only if you can think of them immediately should you worry about changing them. It's a complete waste of time to spend 2 minutes or 3 minutes trying to think of one word. So if you can change them easily using synonyms, do. If you can't, move on. You should also focus on collocations, so words that go together. Do all the words go together properly? Is the meaning correct? Is the spelling correct, and is the word form correct? And especially check when you have changed words, you've used synonyms or you've paraphrased something. When you've changed it, is the word form okay? Is the meaning okay? Is the grammar okay? So you should also think about the following things whenever you are finished your essay. So you should think, does the essay answer all parts of the question? So for example, if it's a causes and solutions question, did you talk both about causes and about solutions? Is the opinion clear in the introduction? It must be. Does each supporting paragraph have a clear topic sentence? Are ideas fully developed with explanations and examples? Is your opinion clear throughout the whole essay? Is there a suitable conclusion? Is it over 250 words? And do you have a range of complex and simple sentences? And finally, is anything confusing or unclear? So when you're reading it, if something is confusing to you or unclear to you, and you are the author of that work, it will definitely be confusing to the person reading it. So you need to rewrite it a little bit. So let me just say that you should use a pencil when you're doing your IELTS writing, so that it is easy just to rub anything out, to erase something and then add it in. But you can also just scribble it out if you want. You can just delete a word and then write a word above it. You should leave yourself plenty of space. So I would skip 2 lines in between paragraphs, and that way if you need to add something, it's very easy to do that. If your writing is all bunched up into one big blob of words, then you can't really delete anything, you can't really edit anything. So make sure you give yourself plenty of space, and that will make it much easier for reviewing, for editing, and also to read it. So let's look at what we learned in this module. We looked at the common mistakes that people make when they're writing conclusions. Don't do any of them. We looked at how conclusions can get you higher marks, why they are so important. We looked at the 2 cohesive devices that you should use and a few of them that you should never use. We looked at the 2 essential elements, which are opinion and summarizing main ideas. We looked at in detail how to write one, a good one. We looked at some examples. And we looked at how to review our essay, and that will help us have a better final product. So in the next module, we're going to move on to our full lessons on each of the 5 question types. So we have finished introductions, main body, and conclusion. Next, we're going to move on to a full lesson on agree or disagree. So thank you very much, and I'll see you in that module. Goodbye.